From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Russ Riesinger. COVID-19 taking a toll not only on those who become sick with the virus, but also on those tasked with caring for them. At St. Vincent Healthcare in Billings, staff is seeing increased patient counts, partially due to a surge in COVID-19 cases. St. Vincent leadership sent a call across the wider organization to ask for more staff to meet that demand. Q2's Mitch Legge brings us more from the medical workers' arrival.
Fresh off a flight from Denver, 3 medical workers arrived at the Billings Logan International Airport Wednesday. 2 nurses and 1 patient care technician make 20 total workers who've made the trip from Colorado to lend a hand at St. Vincent Healthcare. The visiting staff come from a few different hospitals in Colorado that are all under the same parent company as St. Vincent's, named SCL Health. The new staff will be in Billings for 2 to 4 weeks, helping to take care of the increased number of patients coming through the hospital doors. St. Vincent leadership attribute the high volume of patients to a surge in COVID-19 cases, along with more patients that the hospital generally sees this time of year.
Something in your gut that says you have to come help. You know, we've been short-staffed and overwhelmed at Lutheran before, and it's an awful feeling. And to be able to come in and, you know, kind of help ease that burden for them just makes me super proud of the way the system is able to come together and show their strength and unity.
St. Vincent President Steve Lovelace said that this sharing of medical staff is a true show of how interconnected the healthcare system is. In Billings, Mitch Legge, MTN News.
All right, thank you, Mitch. Over this week, between 30 and 40 COVID-19 patients were hospitalized at St. Vincent's. Well, today, 4 more deaths related to COVID-19 and 90 new confirmed cases across Montana. 2 of the deaths in Bighorn County, 1 in Yellowstone, 1 in Marr County. The 2 victims in Bighorn County, a woman in her 60s and a woman in her 70s, increasing the county's death toll to 19. The latest case here in Yellowstone County is a man in his 80s, marking the 50th victim so far in Yellowstone County. And Yellowstone County still with 4 times the active cases of any other county across the state. Well, the American Red Cross is taking care of 3 families who lost their homes in the Bobcat fire south of Roundup. The Red Cross helps with motel rooms and meals. It has moved its temporary evacuation center to the Latter-day Saints Church at 5th Street West. Muscle Shell DES coordinator Andrew Harper says the fire destroyed 10 homes and 13 outbuildings. He says different groups are taking care of those who've been displaced, but hay is needed for livestock. Volunteers say many who are displaced will find family and friends to help.
Roundup, fortunately, it's kind of that double-edged sword, does have experience around disasters, and so they do have a good system and a network of helping each other out. And so it's just being able to make sure that we augment and complement the resources that are already there. It's absolutely helpful. Really, that collaborative work with all of the agencies that are trying to make sure that people's needs are met is just fantastic to see.
And the Roundup Long-Term Recovery Group did have a meeting at the city offices earlier tonight. American Red Cross volunteers were planning on attending that. In Gallatin County, officials confirmed 28 homes were swallowed by the Bridger Foothills fire, burning just northeast of Bozeman. Gallatin County Sheriff says even more outbuildings were lost, although he doesn't have an official number yet. He also says more homes would have been destroyed without the efforts of firefighters. So far, that fire has burned more than 7,000 acres. And we're learning more details after 3 firefighters found themselves in a very scary situation over the weekend, had to deploy fire shelters while trapped in the Bridger Foothills fire. MTN's Andy Johnson tells us it was a last line of defense.
This looks like an ordinary blue box, but what's inside this box saved the lives of 3 firefighters when they became trapped inside the Bridger Foothills fire surrounded by flames.
It's a last line of defense. So if you pull out your fire shelter, all other escape options have been exhausted.
Saturday, September 5th, 3 firefighters with the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation had to deploy their shelters as flames quickly surrounded each of them.
A fire shelter is an aluminized piece of cloth, so it reflects heat when in the fire, and then it also creates a breathable volume of air for a firefighter when they're inside the tent.
Firefighters had to wait until the fire burned through their area, and we're not talking about a couple of minutes.
From the time our 3 firefighters deployed their fire shelter to the time that they walked off the hill and were picked up by an ambulance was 3.5 hours. That doesn't mean that they were under the fire shelter for 3.5 hours, but it does mean that they survived the fire and then walked to a safe location where they were taken to the hospital in 3.5 hours.
Which serves as a reminder to us all.
The deployment of fire shelters is a pretty stark reminder to all of us that wildland firefighting is an incredibly dangerous occupation, and that we should all be incredibly thankful for the men and women who come to Montana to protect our communities, people, and values here.
These things weigh about 5 to 7 pounds, so imagine this strapped to you with all your other gear. It can get pretty heavy. Reporting in Bridger Canyon, Annie Johnson, MTN News.
Well, one Bozeman woman risked her life to save horses and other livestock from the flames. 24-year-old Teresa Ball said authorities told her no one would be able to go in and save her if she got trapped. But the Good Samaritan headed into the Bridger Mountains anyway and returned with dozens of animals, likely saving their lives. Ball says she loves the Bozeman community and wanted to show just how selfless it can be.
I really just hope that it shares a positive message, and they know that, you know, there's a bunch of us out there that maybe don't live on Bridger Canyon Road or Jackson Creek, but we're all ready to help and jump in if need be, and honestly, you know, ready to do most anything for everyone.
And you can help victims of that fire by donating to the Bridger Foothills Fire Relief Fund at GreaterGallatinUnitedWay.org. Nearly 100 major fires are burning western states tonight. Several communities have been all but destroyed. Others are being evacuated ahead of the flames' arrival. Chris Martinez reports from Monrovia, California, a town at the edge of one fire zone.
Scores of wildfires are still burning in nearly a dozen states. The Almeda fire reached Talent, Oregon on Wednesday morning. The flames forced evacuations throughout the area. Oregon declared a state of emergency with 35 major fires spread over 300,000 acres. Governor Kate Brown said the damage is unprecedented.
We expect to see a great deal of loss, both in structures and in human lives.
High winds fanned the flames of the Bear Fire in Butte County, California. Gusting winds have pushed fires across the state and forced firefighting planes and helicopters to stay on the ground.
There are times when the clearance, the visibility is not a problem, but the winds and things like that just don't allow for an efficient use of those aircraft.
You can see the Bobcat fire churning in the mountains above a number of communities. People in neighborhoods like this one have been told to be ready to evacuate at a moment's notice. The North Complex fire neared Paradise, California Wednesday afternoon. A wildfire claimed 85 lives in the town just 2 years ago. Governor Jay Inslee surveyed the damage in Malden, Washington, where most of the homes and businesses have burned to the ground.
We want to help these families who have nothing except the socks they're wearing.
In San Francisco and elsewhere, smoke and ash filled the air, at times blocking out much of the sunlight. In some places, the sky turned orange. In others, it was as black as night. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Monrovia, California.
Well, Billings voters have less than a week to return their voted ballots to the county elections office in the public safety mill levy vote. Next Tuesday, September 15th, is the deadline for ballots to be turned in. Elections Administrator Brett Rutherford tells Q2 out of 60,000 ballots mailed out, already some 24,000 have been returned. If passed, the public safety levy would reflect the city's growing tax base, expanding with it to deal with increased cost of public safety. City's current public safety mill levy has been in place since 2004 and collects a fixed amount each year. A federal judge has put a temporary halt on the winding down efforts of the Trump administration for the 2020 census count. State officials say that ruling has not changed their efforts to make sure that every Montanan is counted by September 30th. MTN's John Riley has more.
As the COVID-19 pandemic shut down the country, the Census Bureau postponed key parts of their population count until August. The Trump administration reversed course last month on their plans to extend the count deadline from the end of September to October 31st, an action that is currently being challenged in court. The state says they're working as if the September 30th deadline is set in stone, given the billions of dollars in state representation that is associated with the count.
Should the court require the Census Bureau to extend the deadline, we'll take full advantage of every single day that's available. But given that the goalposts have continued to move on the 2020 census throughout the last year, we're doing all we can to ensure Montanans respond to the census before September 30th.
The state is currently third from the bottom in reaching the complete count compared to the rest of the country. The count itself is conducted by the federal government, but the state has been making efforts to raise awareness. Governor Bullock allocated $530,000 of CARES Act funding to the Department of Commerce in order to help with census promotion. State partners are actively reaching out to low count areas, and the state is calling on Montanans to help get the word out.
One of the things that Montanans can do is to make sure they talk to their friends and neighbors about it. You know, have you filled out your census? Post on your social media account.
The state stresses you don't need to receive a mailer in order to complete your census. Anyone can go to my2020census.gov or call 1-844-330-2020 anytime before September 30th to be counted. Reporting in Helena, John Riley, MTN News.
Still to come on the MTN 9 o'clock news, President Trump taking heat tonight after he admits to downplaying the coronavirus. We'll have more on that coming up in just a bit, but first, Bob McGuire's in next with your full 7-day forecast.